Charlie Kirk and the fine people over at Turning Point USA have sent a cease and desist letter to ABC after the ladies of The View hurt their fifis. They did a segment and they didn't like the segment. So they sent the cease and desist letter, which by itself is hilarious. Like, the letter was sent by a lawyer, counsel, professional counsel for Turning Point USA. And the errors in the letter, like I'm just talking about spelling, not good. Maybe reconsider your legal counsel. Spend some of that money that you guys are taking from billionaire donors, buy a better lawyer. But anyway, what happened? What did the letter say? Well, recently Turning Point USA held their, youth summit situation. They had all sorts of speeches by people we can't stand, Laura Ingraham, Matt Gaetz, who wanted to call women he doesn't agree with ugly, the huge. And when the ladies of The View were covering it, they talked a little bit about the neo-Nazi march that was happening outside of the conference. And Turning Point USA, like I get it, like they really don't want to be associated with white supremacists and Nazis, even though oftentimes they do things that make it abundantly clear that they're associated with white supremacists. And I'll make that point in just a moment. But here's what the cease and desist letter said. The false statements of fact intentionally made during The View's July 25th segment were unquestionably harmful to Turning Point USA's reputation and brought the organization and its student affiliates into disrepute with the public, potential donors, and current and future business partners, posing a significant financial loss to the organization. They'll be fine. As long as they're advocating for workers to work for free 20 hours a week, as Charlie Kirk did recently, those billionaire donors, they're gooch, they're happy, okay? Let me give you more. The letter continues to say, The View co-hosts mocked the elaborate event for taking a page from the WWE simply because of special effects, inaccurately portrayed. Well, let's just stop before I get to the rest of it. You're triggered by that? They just make a comment about like, oh, look at the special effects at this event. It's like the WWE. That hurt your feelings? Is that what you're worried about when it comes to destroying your reputation? What? Okay, let me continue. Inaccurately portrayed the group as being officially tied to the GOP because they are, and I'll provide the proof of that in just a moment. And Joy Behar criticized the group because neo-Nazi protesters were outside the venue. So, but a better look at this letter does show that there are some issues with the legal counsel, and it also leads me to believe that maybe there's no merit between this threat. So it continues to say, The View host insidiously and cavalierly stated that Turning Point USA let neo-Nazis in to the SAS event, metaphorically, they wrote embarrass. It's, they meant to say embarrassed, but even if they meant to say embarrass, it was, anyway. Embarrass them, and that the neo-Nazis were in the mix of people. Okay, so let's be clear about something. The View, they're having a conversation. There was really nothing wrong with the conversation they were having. They made a few errors as they were discussing this summit. But since we're talking about ABC here, we're talking about a real legal department that's terrified of lawsuits. So literally during the same broadcast, they had to correct their errors, and they did so. So let's start with the first example where the legal disclaimer informing viewers that there was a mistake made literally happened, again, in the same broadcast. Let's watch.
I've got a legal note. The conservative group.
Sunny normally does this, but
I know. Yes. This is our knockoff lawyer. Okay. The conservative group, Turning Point USA, has condemned the group of neo-Nazis and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis is what I want to know.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
All right, so during that disclaimer, Whoopi Goldberg made an error. And the error was that Turning Point USA allowed the neo-Nazi marchers into the conference, which they did not. At least there's no evidence that they did. And so did they just leave that error, or did they correct it in the same broadcast? I don't know, let's watch the next video and figure that out.
quick clarification about the neo-Nazis at the Turning Point event. They were outside protesters. My point was more metaphorical, that you embraced them at your thing, I felt. So they were not in the building.
No, but you know what? Okay. You know what? If the so-called Antifa, who are anti-fascist, that's what Antifa stands for, would go there and protest, then Antifa would get a bad reputation. That's why when I hear that Antifa is
right, but that's not. But let me just make sure that everybody, because misunderstanding what people say is very big.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So we want to make sure I know they were not in the building.
All right, so they corrected that error as well. So as far as I can tell, they have corrected the small errors that they made. So what is the cease and desist letter about? What do you want them to cease and desist? Like, what do you want them to further correct on the air? Now, they allege that they're not in any way associated with the GOP. They're not in any way associated with some of these unsavory white supremacists. Except, I don't know, past reporting would indicate that's not true. First, let's start off with the speakers at this youth summit, the student action summit that they did, okay? Laura Ingraham happened to be one of those speakers. And here is a screenshot from the video. Laura Ingraham destroys liberal beta males. Okay, it's from the Turning Point USA YouTube channel. You guys can check it out for yourselves. There's more. High school conservatives have it the hardest. They have it so hard, everybody. But they're not in any way politically slanted. They're not associated with the GOP, even though they got their initial seed money from Foster Friess, a billionaire mega donor, which we'll get to in just a moment. But more. This isn't from the youth summit, but here's another video that you can find on their channel. Why liberal parents want their kids to be trans. More of the culture war hysteria you can expect from people who want to distract you with things that really have no impact on your life. Here's a video of Charlie Kirk. He apparently spoke at the event as well. The left thinks it's winning, but it's not. So was there any content that's critical of Republicans? I mean, Greg Gutfeld, he spoke at the event. Wait, conservatives are the funny ones now? I bet this has nothing to do with supporting one party. I bet it has nothing to do with being, bootlickers for the GOP, supporters of the Trump administration at any and all costs. I'm sure that this is a fair nonprofit organization, and it is unfair to associate them with the GOP. How dare you? But what about their funding? Let's get to their funding. In addition to traditional funding, other organizations sponsor Turning Point USA events, usually within the range of $5,000 to $10,000. Sponsors have included the Heritage Foundation, right-wing organization, Alliance Defending Freedom, right-wing organization, the Reason Foundation, libertarian organization. Don't agree with a lot of what they do, but every once in a while they have some reporting that I think is pretty decent. The Foundation for Economic Education, PragerU, the Job Creators Network, and the Leadership Institute and the Generation Opportunity Institute. I bet you guys can guess. These aren't lefty organizations. These aren't nonpartisan organizations. These are right-wing organizations. But there's more. The first big backer for Turning Point USA was Foster Friess, the 77-year-old Republican mega donor known for bankrolling Rick Santorum's 2012 presidential campaign and for his strident critiques of Islam. Kirk approached Friess at the 2012 Republican National Convention in Tampa and asked him to donate to a new student-focused group he'd recently created. He gave me $10,000 a couple weeks later, Kirk says. Cool, any donors on the left? Anyone from the opposing political views supporting this organization, working for this organization, doing any work? Oh, it's just right-wingers, right-wing politicians and right-wing donors. Oh, okay. So why are you offended that the ladies at The View associated you with the GOP? What's offensive about that? Please sue them. Please sue them. Listen. Lawsuits can be great, because there's something known as the discovery process. And Turning Point USA somehow, even though they engage in all this political activism and don't deserve what they're labeled as, they're considered a charity, a nonprofit. And when you're considered a nonprofit, you don't have to disclose who your donors are. Luckily, we have some insight because Charlie Kirk provided that insight himself, but they don't have to disclose it. And so if Turning Point USA wants to sue, please sue, because I'd love to know who the rest of your donors are. That would be so, so wonderful. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to prove yourself, right? I mean, look, it's clown show. Clown show. But do it, go for it. Please sue them. And then a few other things. Jane Mayer over at the New Yorker reported back in 2012, a conservative nonprofit, gee, I wonder why she thought they're conservative, that seeks to transform college campuses faces allegations of racial bias and illegal campaign activity. This is the New Yorker. You guys can check out this piece from 2017 yourselves. Perhaps the most troubling for an organization that holds up conservatives as the real victims of discrimination in America. Turning Point USA is also alleged to have fostered an atmosphere that is hostile to minorities. Screenshots provided to me by a source show that Crystal Clanton, who served until last summer as the group's national field director, sent a text message to another Turning Point employee saying, quote, I hate black people, like F them all, I hate blacks, end of story. While Kirk served as the public face of Turning Point, Clanton, its former field director, acted as its hands-on boss, according to former employees. In 2016, or in a 2016 book that Kirk co-authored with Brent Hamachek, Time for a Turning Point, setting a blah, 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 you guys get it, that's his book. He described Clanton as the best hire we ever could have made. He called her integral to the success of Turning Point while effectively serving as its chief operating officer. He added, Turning Point needs more crystals. So does America. Look, man, I can go on and on and on, it's endless. So do your little lawsuit. I can't wait. I'm super excited.